All right, welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak on this 6th day of February 2023. My name is Sam Gituku, and it's time to introduce the panelists we have here in studio. Some of them are here for the first time in 2023. We have Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Gladys Boss. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Happy New Year. It's too late now.
No, oh yeah.
All right. Then we have Robert Mbui, the Deputy Minority Leader at the National Assembly, MP Kathiani constituency. Good morning.
Morning, Sam.
How have you been?
Very well.
All right. You'll be telling us what you have been up to, but Fred has been here. Fred Okango from KANU, the Secretary of Political Affairs. Good morning.
Good morning, Sam.
Deputy Speaker, what have you been up to? It's been a whole 37 days. We haven't seen you.
I was taking a commercial break and recharging my batteries.
Oh, interesting. Now you're fully charged.
Yes.
Honorable Mbui, what have you been up to?
Well, other than what she was doing, we also had this situation where we had to take our new members through induction.
Yeah.
For parliamentary practices and parliamentary work. And also for those of us who've been around, also a refresher course so that we can be able to figure out our new path in politics and the plans for the year. So we started the year with that retreat that took a while. I'm sure you are reporting on what was going on there.
Yes, and
but not the real issues that took us there.
What do you mean?
No, I think there were a lot of things that happened. I mean, CDF became like the talk of the day.
Yes.
Bursary, but really we were there to equip our members with the tools to be able to be proper legislators.
But I hear now you're happier that your constituents have gotten something at least to take them to school with the CDF.
Well, and it's unfortunate that the promises that were given have not been met.
What do you mean?
We still have some backlog, a little bit of backlog.
2 tranches have been released, and there's one more tranche that was due
last week,
Tuesday. But I'm sure it's
and each comes with how much for every constituency?
About 7 million.
7 million. So far you've received 14 million.
Yes. So
okay.
we've gotten to around 20, but just over 20, less than 30. But most constituencies would give between 30 and 40-something million for bursary. Okay. So it's unfortunate that children are reporting to school today, but majority of our constituencies are not able to actually support them as appropriately as we have always done. It's the first time since I was elected in 2013.
Wow. That's interesting. And so many developments. I'm sure you've seen some of the dailies on the Standard. You see Dreams at Risk, about 1 million learners that sat KCPE last year expected to join Form 1 today. And despite government promise of 100% transition, bright students stare at missing good schools for lack of school fees. And I'm just wondering, Honorable Boss, how dire is this situation, especially if you have to reflect on the county you come from, that really the CDF becomes like almost the only solution, but also looking ahead, what is it that we must do to ensure that no learner misses school because of challenges at home?
I think on this one, I'll use my own example. What I do in Uasin Gishu is I normally rely on the primary schools. And the primary schools know the needy students, because the students, because they're usually day scholars, they know the families, they know the homesteads. They can even tell you this child sometimes misses school because of lack of food. So when you use the head teachers in the primary school, they'll flag out these children to you even before the exams are done. By the time the child is in class 8, you already know this is one of our good students, but already has a challenge. And normally we flag them out like that. And then usually it should be brought to the attention to the Member of Parliament. There is the county also has a bursary. The women county MPs also have bursaries. And so I really think it's difficult for any child to, if they've done well, to completely miss out on going to school. And if I was, I would just look at St. Mary's Yala, where is it, which constituency? Immediately the Member of Parliament for that area can pick it out, get in touch with the school. And even if the money, we also have to be innovative. Sometimes if the bursary amount is little, you can ask the school that you pay part of it. And then as the next tranche of money comes, you pay. That's what normal people would do even in their homesteads. If you can't pay for something up front, you pay it in installments.
Okay, all right.
So I think we have to think about it in that way, because in that way we'd be solving the problem. Because I think once a school is assured, and there are times I've even written to a school and say, don't send that student back. We are waiting for the amount of money, bursary funds to come in at such and such a time. Don't send that student back. And they usually will listen.
Okay. And Fred, how do we make this sustainable moving into the future? Because already we know that at least 1 million learners will be sitting their final exam, whether it's standard 8 or in future from, is it grade 6 or is it grade 9? What is it that we must do to ensure that it is sustainable?
If you just allow me to weigh in on that one, it's something I'm passionate about. I think Fred will allow me.
It's okay.
I think, first of all, we have to bring the cost of education down. We've said we have free education in secondary, but you find that the costs that are being charged, let's say for food and things like that, is pretty high. Some are above normal rates. And I know we had discussions with some members of parliament, and one of them even suggested that it's rather he gets some of the village women to come and be cooking githeri and bring it outside the school. It will still cost cheaper than the much the school is using. So there's also a bit of games played by the head teachers. Number two, the cost of uniforms. If we don't stop that cost of uniforms, our children are going to suffer. Many parents can't afford. Because in many cases we give, and I'm sure Andrew Mbui will tell you, you've given out bursaries, then you're told the child is still at home. When you ask why, it's because they can't afford this uniform. The uniform costs as much as 23,000 shillings. Some are even told to pay cash in the schools. What happened to the good old days when I could go to Mitumba and buy a pair of black shoes and a school uniform? Why is it that they must select for us a very expensive shop to go and buy the shoes? You can't, that is not affordable. Parents can't afford shoes that cost 1,000 or 2,000 shillings. They can get the same shoe for 300 bob at Mitumba. So just say black shoes, let's standardize uniforms. If it's black shoes, grey trousers, and this. But you can't have a situation where children have tracksuits, then they have fleece, then they have a sweater, then they have a shirt, a long sleeved, a short sleeve, then they have I don't know how many ties. We never used to dress like that. Uniform is just supposed to be simple and to standardize.
Okay, very interesting.
So that is, uniforms is something we must stop.
Okay, Fred, what are your thoughts about this?
Thank you, Sam. Agreeing with the Honorable Boschele on what she has said, but if you look at the numbers that keep on graduating into the next level, it is true that we are staring at a problem. And you see, education is a socio-economic right. We must give our children the education they deserve. That is what the law requires of the government. And we have seen challenges both at the government level and at the parent level. But now, I was very happy when the CS Education, I don't know, CS Education or was it Moses Kuria, who ordered that parents should not be dictated to where they buy the uniform. They should get the right uniform and ensure that they get it at a cost that they can afford. And that was good. And I managed to interact with one of the public primary schools in the city, and they told me that they have allowed parents, actually, from that directive to get uniforms for whatever they want. But one of the important things that we must understand is that the government must now ensure that they fund public institutions, because that is where a majority of Kenyans can take their children to. There's a lot of pressure from parents to take their kids to the best of the best schools, particularly having seen the performances and having seen some of the private schools the way they've been performing before.
Right.
But if the public servants would want to take their children to private schools while they offer services to the public institutions, fund public institutions, then who is going to ensure that the public institutions work? They say that if it is good for a public servant, if it is good for the public, then it must be good for the public servant. So I would want to see a situation where majority of the public servants, state officers, first of all, accept that public institutions and facilities are their first option in getting services, both schools, hospitals, and the rest, so that we don't have this issue of competition, then we don't have this issue that parents now must start to get pressure that I have to look for the best school to take my kid because that is where people perform. And lastly, Sam, this issue of students that are now, their dreams are at risk, best performance, and they're not able to now go to the schools that they had hoped to go to because they don't have school fee. We know that when we were campaigning the other time, majority or different political formations gave promises. There are those who said that starting January, the students will not pay a penny. They'll go to school for free from whatever level to whatever level. Then there are those who said that there'll be some level of cooperation and pay a percentage. This is the time to now actualize some of this for those who are in government. It is the time to actualize. But again, there's nothing wrong with bringing communities together and institutions to try and look at bursaries that are, scholarships. Because you see, we have seen students perform every time. Then the media will always go and look for, ways of following these students who performed, where they are, how they're doing. And always you'll find that there's this one person or two that for one or two reasons did the best, but they're not able to get to school. It's always there. So we know that. So what I would want to encourage is, let's look at scholarships, but let's also fund public institutions and encourage the public to use public institutions, including the public servants themselves. Okay.
Honorable Mboya, as you exit from this, do you think it's possible really to execute a promise, a political promise of financing education through and through, knowing that for the boarding schools, secondary schools, it can cost you up to 53,000 shillings. That's what is allowed in law, but sometimes it goes beyond that. Is it possible to really put more pressure on the taxpayer to pay for all learners in secondary school?
You know, Sam, as I answer that, I want to go back to when the late His Excellency Honorable Mwai Kibaki was president. And they made a promise to provide free primary education, and people thought it wasn't possible, and it did happen. To a large extent, primary education was free. Secondary education is also fairly, supported by government. There's a lot of money that is given in capitation for every learner in our schools. I think the biggest problem is not the government's inability. It is how some of these monies are managed, and maybe even the delays in the disbursement of these monies. But I know that we had a dream as Azimio that if we take over leadership, we would be able to provide probably free secondary education. And I know that it is possible, because what we must understand is that the idea of education is not just an abstract idea. Education is actually what builds a future. Some of these countries that are doing so well, it's because of the educated population that they have. So if you keep people ignorant throughout their lives, and this is one of the things we set out to fight when we got our independence. If we keep people ignorant, the country cannot develop. Kenyans who know their rights, so they don't know the value of paying taxes, they don't know the value of spending their money properly and prudently. So I think it is possible that we can reach that dream of providing free education. It is all over the country, all over the world. Many countries do provide free education. I think the basic things like education and health, we must, in as much as possible, try and make them as free as possible so that we can be able to build our people and support them. And I wish I were in government, then you would be asking me how we are going to finance it. But now you're asking me how we finance. I would have answered that if Azimio was in power. Okay. Give us a short while. When we take over, then we will be able to actualize this dream.
I don't know what a short while is, but we'll get to that.